I'm just going to tell you a story of Oregon and what I'm from. There's some things that I do and Oregon does that's really, really awesome, more awesomer than you guys. And you guys do a lot of stuff that's more awesomer. Notice you guys are teachers, so I'm using the teacher language, but more awesomer than we do. So just you'll pick out little bits and pieces of things, and if not, there's a drink on your table. So this is from 1919, 100 years ago, in an area of Portland, and it's like one of the first school garden-y pictures I've ever found, and I use this a lot in my travels. So you can see all the people in their knickers and their petticoats doing whatever it is you garden people do. And so I was always really, really intrigued about this. So this is one of the things I did on like one Slack Friday, I guess. And I wanted to find out where that was, and nobody knew. I asked and asked. There's no such thing as a Montevilla school anymore. And so I did a little research, and I did a whole project that lasts an hour on this, but I'll just give you one slide. But basically, I went on Google Earth, and I found where it is. And there's the same house that's still there, and that's a church where the garden was. And you can barely see, but there's all this sidewalk here. That was the footprint of a big, giant school that was a block long. So pretty cool. So that's kind of a little bit of our history. That was like our first school garden that we know existed. And so as Kiara said, we're at quite a bit more now. I was a little bit about myself. As we said, I was a food service director for 32 years. And I became that kind of crazy, passionate food service director that was passionate about getting local produce into the cafeteria and school garden produce into the cafeteria. And I started working with my parent groups, and it created a monster in a good way. I became a master gardener, and it changed my life. And I found what I truly wanted to do when I was, late 40s, and now I have the best job in the world. So I just went and quit my job one day, and this job was available. I applied for it. They wanted someone that knew school garden, school culture, principals, school boards, parent groups, and had worked out the intricacies of getting school garden produce into the cafeteria. So it was a really good fit. And so now I can't wait to go to work every day. I love my job, and people go, "Oh, I'm so getting your job." I'm like, "No, you're not, ever. Thanks for trying." But but when I got my job, I thought, "Oh, everyone will be like me, because what's not to love? Everyone loves school gardens." Wrong. It's sad to say, but I call my fellow food service directors, and they're like, "Oh, it's Rick." And I mean, I told some of my buddies today earlier, but like about a third of our schools are what I call rock stars. A third of them kind of mail it in, and a third want nothing to do with school gardens because it's more work. So so there's that. So this was an actual quote. You know this guy. Yeah. Actual quote from an Oregon administrator. I believe it was a superintendent. "Gardens are just pretty things where no educations take place. No gardens in our district anymore." Next quote, "Get off my lawn," right? Another actual, "Gardens are just smelly things that die. No gardens in our district anymore." I started hearing this, and so it became necessary for me to change my way of thinking. I was only dealing with food service directors and stuff, trying to get school garden produce into the cafeteria, and I stopped doing that, and I started working with school boards and such. But basically, there's new administrators in both those districts, and we've turned it around. So that's the good news there. But there's one takeaway with that is communication. You cannot communicate enough. One of those districts we had, where you said there's smelly things that die, we had a compost pile that somebody installed in the winter. And in Oregon, it's just cold, damp usually, and it's not really freezing cold, but it's like 40 degrees forever. And somebody put a compost pile up against the building. And then they came this time of year, and it gets warm, and they open up the window, and there was a compost pile. Sorry. And the smell came in the school. And so the garden coordinator came and one Monday morning, and the compost pile was gone. And then that's when that quote happened. The facilities guy yanked it out. And if she would have went and said, hey, I want to have a compost pile, where could I put it? And he would have said, out there, everything would have been great. But she just like, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to put it here because that's what's best for me, or whatever. So communication, all right? That's your one little takeaway for today. Okay, so currently at 7:25. That must have been the last opening from last time I was here. There's all the gardens. And actually, that's probably when it was about 500. When I got my job, the first question I asked was, how many gardens are in our state? And they said, we don't know. Nobody knows. You can't know that. It's too hard. Don't find out. And I'm like, try to tell me what to do. So, and first of all, my bosses were gone for 2 weeks on vacation. I had a cubicle. And I'm sitting in an empty cube going, what have I done? I quit my job. And so I just picked up the phone and I started going from Amity to Youngalla, Oregon. And I called the head administrator, secretary, said, hi, my name is Rick Sherman from the Oregon Department of Ed. And they go, shh, Department of Ed's on the phone. So that's a good tip, just to name drop. Then it's just me, who knows. But do you have a school garden? And they're like, well, we have roadies out front. No, do you have like carrots in the ground? Yes or no? So it took about 3 months, 20 minutes a day. And my message was, when I said this before, you guys weren't at a place where you knew where your gardens, and now you do. So I had calls from all over the country, like, how did you do this? I'm like, get an intern. Don't do it yourself for 3 months. So I think there's like about 8 or 9 states that are like this now, that know where all their gardens are. And so now I can give surveys. You guys love surveys, right? And I can get lots of data, and I'm going to share more about this. So more about Oregon. This is Oregon, you guys, too, okay? You think we live in log cabins and we're in the woods. There is the I-5 corridor. It's the Willamette Valley, not the Willamette Valley. Okay, it's the Willamette Valley, and it's very green and fertile. And we can put something in the ground and go away for weeks, come back, and it's still there. It's not like scorched earth, like some states. But Eastern Oregon is like this. Eastern Oregon and the Cascade Mountains run down Washington and Oregon. And so, but we have a lot like this too. So we do have challenges, and you put a shovel in the ground and it goes clank. We have to make our own dirt out there too. So we do have issues not unlike here. But we have lots of cool gardens. We have lots of little tiny, where there's no space. We have fence line gardens. We have cranberry bog gardens at a high school down here in the South Coast in Oregon. We have a lot of cold weather, not like freezing, but there are a lot of places that need some help, and we can grow things in the winter with just a little bit of help and a little bit of screening and stuff. This is on the Cascades in the middle of Oregon, near a town called Sisters. It's a frontier western motif town. And that was actually stuff growing in the late fall right there. And then we have a lot of indoor gardens in those areas too. So, and it's not just me there. We have a ton of partners. I have a counterpart with the Department of Ag. So there's me in the Department of Ed, Department of Ag. So I work from the K-12 schools out, and my counterpart works from farmers, ranchers, producers in. So it's we tag team there. We have the Oregon Farm to School and School Garden Network, and we have a director there, and we have all these nonprofit partners. So it's not just me. I'd love to take credit for everything, but I can't. We have a school garden summit once a year, not unlike this. This was our first one. We went from an annual meeting of 40 people. When I mapped the gardens, I had all these school garden coordinators, and we went from 40 to 250 and now up to 400. So we do that every other year. Come on up to Oregon next winter, and it's at the Oregon Gardens, our botanical garden in Silverton, Oregon. And obviously, because I stayed at the Silverton Hotel, and it's not here. So that was our first one. Another big thing that we've done is we've created hubs. So this was kind of a neat thing, and I highly recommend that for you people. We do have There is a hub here. It's called PIFGen, Portland Farm Garden Education Network. That would be like here. It's one big, huge city. But since then, we've splintered, and I've encouraged neighborhoods, Clackamas, East Multnomah County, Hillsborough, Beaverton, Forest Grove. So we have little neighborhoods getting together, and that helps out a lot. The one thing we heard in the School Garden Summit loud and clear was everybody feels all alone. And that's where, when we get together as a group like here, it's such a shot in the arm, because we realize, oh, I'm not alone. I have people I could talk to. I could bug my neighbors and stuff. So we get together in these very remote parts of the state we're working on out here in Eastern. This is that vast desert I was telling you guys about, right? But we go to these remote areas, and the first one I made was here where I live in Linn County, Albany area. And we got everybody together. They didn't even know each other. And they became instant best friends. We've done projects. I'll get into some of those. Here's a picture of one in Corvallis, where Oregon State University is. Go Beavers. We had a summertime hub meeting, and this guy here, we're introducing ourselves, and we're saying, who are you? And he goes, my name's David Adams. I'm on the school board. And we're like, who invited him? That's awesome. We didn't think of that. And he goes, well, what do you guys, do you have an ask? What do you want? And they're all like, I go, ask them for a paid school garden position. I'm listening. And so they said, yeah, we would like a paid school garden coordinator position for the district. And he goes, well, if you don't ask, we won't give it to you. And he heard about this meeting because it's very important to the school board. It became, after all the outreach we did. And so he goes, I'm not saying we'll give you a full FTE, but we'll probably give you something, And so he dispatched somebody to take notes over the next year and do it, and they're making it happen. So that never would have happened without us getting together in our hubs, I feel. So neat, wonderful, magical things happen with those hubs. The Linn County hub, like I said, you can't really tell what this is, but one of the things I encourage is school board meetings. And so, and I have a little list of what I do, but it's so powerful. We talked about, had showed pictures of our school gardens in this Linn County meeting. It's a small county. We got done, and there was this big pregnant pause, and one of the school board guys clears his throat and goes, we have gardens? They didn't know. And this made our paper, and we had pictures. 1 month after that, we had 4 gardens we started just because of that. And it probably never would have happened again if we did an outreach. And matter of fact, this is that same hub meeting. This was one of those brand new gardens. They had Liberty Elementary. It's right in they put it in their front lawn. They're like, where should we have it? In the back? No, we want it right in the front. And the garden coordinator's dad was a welder, and they did all of this. They had an artist in residence and made all this stuff. The mayor came. They had a marching band from the high school. I mean, if you're gonna open a garden, do it right? So, I mean, that was just, we were blown away. So, that brings me to a point. I get in trouble for saying this from some of my buddies, and I don't care. But I say don't even do farm to school or school gardens if you don't tell your story. You're wasting your time. I mean, yeah, it's the right thing to do for kids. But seriously, if you don't tell your story, you don't get the momentum and you don't get people. I swear there's no one that loses in a school garden. Everyone wins. The kids win, the communities win, the teachers win, everybody gets pats on the back. If you get it in the cafeteria, the food service wins. So tell your story. Do it in your social media. Do it in your announcements, whatever. And yeah, but if you don't tell your story, nobody knows about it and stuff. So it's all about marketing. So I really, really push that a lot. So like I said, here's my focus, and I do a whole hour-long presentation on this. I'll just give you one slide. But basically, define who your audience is. You guys know that. You know who your gardens are, right? So that's your audience. You know who your people are. Network, check. You guys are doing that too. You're getting together. But you can also network in smaller groups, in smaller neighborhoods and stuff. then do stuff and relate it to standards. I've seen lots of examples of that. So invite people to what you do. So if you have a school garden day, if you have a farmer's market, make sure you're putting out the announcements and invite people. Report back. Make sure you tell your school board members. And matter of fact, your school boards have to be somewhere every week because they meet in their school board meetings and they go around the room and they say, Johnson, what did you do this week? Oh, I went to Crestwood Elementary and I saw the wonderful program. So they have to go out there. They have to show that they're doing stuff. So invite them. They love to see kids. They need an excuse to get out anywhere. Invite your school board members to your gardens. And then when you get to know people, they become your best advocates and fans. And I've heard so much about, especially here in Las Vegas, I heard so much about the red tape and stuff. And once you start getting those people, they know about it and they're going to make things happen for you. So I'd say that's one of your best allies, getting those people as your friends and allies on your side. So once you have a relationship with those people, then you can have an ask and they'll do their best to make it happen. Also, for those people, you guys might have seen this floating around and stuff. I think it's from the American, not the Horticulture Society, Garden Society, I believe. But it's basically, it shows a little drawing of every single subject known to mankind. And I get asked for this a lot. And I have cards, you can email me and I'll send it to you, but it's a really neat thing. When they say, oh, we can't teach anything, and it's like, are you kidding? You can teach anything in a school garden. You can teach anything. Just look at the poster. So one thing, this was really cool too, in the Linn County Hub meeting on our school garden day, on the way into the school, first two things. The way into the school. When you have an opportunity to build a new school, like one gets mothballed and they want to build a new one, they always ask for a committee and they do this everywhere in the country, so I know they have to do it here. They'll ask for food service people, they'll ask for principals, they'll ask for parents, they'll ask students, they'll ask community members, and they all get together and they go, it's your building, what do you want on it? So I always find out when one's going on, and I handpick a bunch of people, say, Kira, you get on that. And they go, we want you to build a school garden and build a school around it. And that's happened a couple times in Eugene where I was, and they did it. And so they roughed in and they had everything. They started with the garden. You walk through the garden to get to the school and they have all the roughed in, all the irrigation and everything ready to go. And then they built the garden. So it's like, welcome to our garden. And you're going into the school. So that's a really good opportunity. But this wasn't in Eugene, but another place where you walked by the school garden to get to the school, the kids put all their hypotheses there. Like, what would happen if we overwatered a plant and killed it? Let's find out. They'd have all these nutty little, anything the kids wanted to do. And so they were presenting all this. And so when they'd have an open house and the superintendent came in and stuff, they all saw this and they're like, oh my gosh, there's education going on in here. Again, it wasn't happening in a bubble. They showed everybody what they're doing. So really neat stuff. What if I told you school gardens make test scores improve, decrease discipline problems, increase attendance? Can you prove it? This is one thing. When I speak every year at our Oregon School Board Association, it's the big convention where all the school boards get together in the state. You guys probably have one of those. You should get on there and speak about school gardens. But I used to speak and I used to talk about improving student nutrition. Nobody cared at all. Nobody. And I'm like, I'm a food service director. They'll care because it's me talking. No, they don't. So I stopped doing that and I started saying increasing student achievement with school gardens. And it was packed every year because that's all school boards care about, right? And rightfully so, is increasing their test scores and increasing attendance and everything. And I was like, you can do that with school gardens. And I didn't bring handouts for you. And you guys are teachers. You guys could figure it out. Just Google that stuff, increasing test scores with school. And you'll find tons of studies. And I found the one about there's a beneficial bacteria and you put your hands in the dirt and kids just zen out. Yes, they do. And like every single alternative school I've ever been to, I've talked to kids and they're like, if I would have known this was here before, right? They have a link to that. And you go to those alternative schools and they're saying, if you ever took away this garden from our kids, it would be a revolt. It would be over our dead body. Our discipline problems have gone down. I talk about the Nomies at Crestwood. There's one high school in Oregon, Molalla River High School. There's 1,000 kids there. It's a pretty small high school. It is, right? Okay. So it's kind of a rural, very poor community. The food service director there, Kelly, little old Russian lady. I speak with her all the time. She raised $30,000 in a couple of weeks just by knocking on doors and not taking no for an answer. We had a couple legislators. They were Oregon's 500th school garden. She's like, oh, I'm the 500th? Oh, so you go into their school and it's painted. It says, welcome to Oregon's 500th school garden, painted on their walls. And so we had this ribbon cutting and she invited 2 legislators and they were in the middle of trying to get money for their campaigns. And she's, so Representative Gilliam and Representative, what, how much will you give me for your garden? And they're like, they're trying to make money themselves. And they're like, I'll give you 500 and so will my friend, Mr. Representative Gilliam. So he said, my compatriot will also give you $500. And so that's $1,000 they wouldn't have got if they wouldn't have asked. So anyway, but they have, out of the 1,000 kids, they have, I think 600 of their kids are a member of what they call their culture club. And I'm like, and she's from Russia. I'm like, culture club, Boy George. And she's like, boy who? She had no clue. I'm like, okay, whatever. But she called it the culture club. And it's illegal. They can't do gang signs, but they allowed them to, so the kids go to, and they do their culture club thing. And it's, you talk about like at Crestwood, they had an application. It was like the same thing. It's like, if you have a behavior problem, you're out. And so behavior problems went from here to 0 instantly, and all the kids were just, oh. And it's it's a Russian population, Hispanic, Vietnamese, and so it started out being a Russian club, and they're like, all the other kids were like, I want to eat Russian food, and I want to be, friends. So it became this big multicultural thing. It was wonderful. So, anyway. I don't know how I got on that subject. I get all emotional with it, but one of the things we did too, we weren't able to have garden produce in our cafeteria when I first got there, so I made that happen. I made a food safety training and documentation manual, and so I pitched it to all of our county sanitarians that go into the cafeterias, and they're the ones like here with the National School Lunch Program. They have to be inspected twice a year. And so they started seeing garden produce and they're like, what's this garden produce stuff? So I did this and I gave it to their group. So they edited it with me as well as 100 people from all over the country, and they signed off on it. So now they know it's there and they don't care. And this is kind of a true thing I found out everywhere in the country, but they don't care where food comes from. If it comes from the Cisco truck or Rykoff or whatever you guys down here, or the school garden, they just want to make sure the food is handled properly. So and there's not the regulations with produce as there are with meat, shellfish, eggs, all that stuff. So I got that done, checked that off the list, and now we're rocking in Oregon, and so we have a lot of people doing that. You can tell your story by figuring out how to collect data from your gardens. I hate data, but not with school gardens. I love it. So this is something I can do really well. No, who likes surveys, right? I know. Out of 725, I've been surveying everybody. I still have about 200 to go, but I have a team of interns. It's going to get done by June. But I'm going to show you a little bit of the magic that happens when you get cool data. I know how many gardens by county in Oregon and by area. So North Coast, Metro, Willamette Valley, Eastern Oregon. So I have by county. I have by grade level. Elementary, middle, high school, and the gray is a blend, K through 8, K through 12. I know, what is a school? That's a good one, right? Regular school. I have community gardens that are right next to a school that I call that a school garden because there's regular education taking place. I have camps, residential childcare institutions, RCCIs, Head Starts, private schools, alternative schools, charter schools, and other. This is kind of cool. And again, this is only when I was at 358 so far. I'm still collecting all the data. But from our first reported school garden, I have a question there. To the best of your ability, what year was your garden created? So then I have this little graph that's going up here. See the old-timey farmer to the robot gardener, get it? Garden leader titles, whoo! This is teacher, educator, classroom, horticulture, FFA, a lot of volunteers, a lot of, and it's a mess. I'm sorry, this isn't really for consumption yet, but nonprofit directors, master of public health, master gardeners, Head Start. Okay. Also, I know which of my schools have chickens, which have bees, which gardens compost, which have garden composting services, which use produce for the cafeterias, which are connected to standards. I have the garden budget for everything or for the labor figured out, which schools have FFA or master gardener support, how many kids participate and how often a week or a month or whatever, how the gardens look, who has row crops, who has aeroponics, hydroponics, who has raised beds, whatever, how many attend hubs, who would like to start a hub, who would like to join a hub. So lots of fun stuff. I do a grant. We just said that. I have $4.5 million for Oregon schools. Sorry, you don't get any of it. 80% of it is for Oregon grown or Oregon processed food for people to get reimbursed with, and everybody in Oregon. That's open to all school districts in Oregon. That's an opt-in thing. Some people don't opt in because they're the principal, also the cook and the janitor, and they don't want to do any more work, and they're in a teeny tiny remote school out in Timbuktu. Those are the ones that don't participate because they're going to get $50 or whatever. But anyway, on my card, you can go to my website, and I have all this stuff I talked about is kind of right on here. I have a school garden section. Oh, or bit.ly, Oregon Farm to School is a little shortcut I created. Bit.ly, ORF2S, Oregon Farm. So that's kind of cool. I have an Oregon Harvest for Schools website on there too that has lots of educational materials. It's awesome. Boom, done. Questions? Oh, and these things, photofunia.com. You can get the Einstein picture and put in school gardens. And no, I'm not that big of a deal. I like to think I am, but yeah. So photofunia.com, great for presentations. And then read all that. There's that's so you can't sue me or whatever. Yeah, or Green Our Planet or whatever. Okay. Questions? The question was, how did I create the garden hubs in those communities? The first one, I just had an idea, and so since I have the map and I have all the school garden coordinators' email addresses, I emailed everybody in the county and I said, hey, let's meet at a school and we'll talk. Normally what I'll do is so we did the first one and I gathered it together and it became really awesome, like a well-oiled machine, and two leaders emerged, and I don't want it to be my meeting, I want it to be theirs, so I let them do it. And so then I started telling everybody, hey, we have a hub, who wants to do another one? And usually the next one that would come up, someone would call me and go, I need help, I'm so alone. I'm like, oh, where are you, Gresham? I'm like, oh, do you want to start a hub? And then no one wants to be a leader, right? So I'm like, I will do all the work. I will email everybody for me. You just have to sit there, and then we'll create an agenda. Then you'll find out how easy it is. I'll back away. And I always try to get two people in case one is busy or one gets hit by a truck or whatever. So then there's two, or one retires or leaves or whatever. But and then I found some groups that were meeting anyway, like the Portland one, and I'm like, you're one of my hubs now. Congratulations. And so there was 2 or 3 like that. And then I would pitch it at our school garden summit. And they were like, I want to do one of those. And so it just started snowballing. And we got more and more. Now we do have some people that we had a nonprofit that start doing some grants to give money to the hubs to lead it. And I have really mixed reservations about that. I thought they ran really well by themselves. And because they came in and said, oh, here, nonprofit, you can run this hub now. And then, great, we'll do one meeting a year. And they're like, well, we meet every other month. We can't meet anymore. Or what happens when the money goes away? They're like, oh, there's no more hub. We don't have capacity to run it anymore. So I almost caution against money for it. I think it's one of those few things that takes it takes pea pods to run it, from the garden. You snack on pea pods and have coffee. And everybody does their own thing. Some are very well organized. Some just share starts and want to drink coffee. And some are very organized and have marching orders and do great things. But a lot of neat things happen. The question was reactions to local garden clubs. As long as they work with K-12 or pre-K through 12 schools, if they do that, I don't distinguish as PK and they're all education. As long as there's regularly scheduled educational activities with a school group, then you bet I do a lot. Back there.
I saw that it said 4.5 million, and I heard you say about somebody taking 500. So how did you get 4.5 million for gardens? Is that annually, or is that just money sitting collecting interest?
Okay, we started when I first came there. They were like, "Oh, great, you can run our grant." And I'm like, "What's a grant?" I had big learning curve. I became an expert really fast. But we started with a little pilot of $200,000, and it was competitive, and we had 9 school districts. Then from 200,000, we got a lot. We've never got a no vote. This is like an eco place, and there's no wood. But we went up to 1 million, 1.2 million, 4.5. We're being told it's in the House, right? It's actually Ways and Means right now in Oregon. We've been expected to have it pass for 5 million now. We asked for 8.5. We're going to get 5. We asked for a lot, get a little. But we started out small, made it competitive, and then when we got out to 4.5 million, we had enough to make it open, the 80% open for all school districts for the food. And we would like to make the education portion bigger if we get more money. Start out small, though.
Okay, in any of your school districts, do you have teachers that are dedicated teachers to the garden? They're just teaching curriculum in the garden?
Yes.
Is that happening?
And one of my slides that I didn't even show because I said my data, about 7 years ago when I first started doing this, I think we had about 5 or 10 paid positions in the state, and now we have almost half have some funding. It's crazy. It blows my mind. And a lot of those are especially in the middle schools and stuff, in the high schools, the budgets have gotten a little better than back in the recession. And they're saying, okay, teacher, you can have 2 hours a day. You can have 2 garden classes. And they're able to teach. So that's their part-time school garden, and that can justify things. We do have we have some full-time school garden coordinators employed by district. We have a few I didn't show on here, but we have 6 school district farms that are massive, 3-4 acre farms on school property. That one alternative school students actually built a barn, a big huge barn, and they did it all themselves with just
it's a food production farm, and they're
they
money.
might have CSAs and they have a school garden coordinator running it. That's pretty rare. We have 6 of those, but we have we've had more and more people that aren't. It used to be just 100% volunteer, and it was they'd get burnt out, leave, and I have 725 gardens. I have 70 of them that are on hiatus status. I'm not going to get rid of them from my map. It's too much. There's a garden there. There's weeds this tall. We just need someone to plug in and get it going again. So I have in process, hiatus, active. So we do have 70 of that 725 that have we've had people get burnt out or they leave and then the garden leaves with them. So that's a universal thing, I think.
To get people on board with that.
Where to start? It's all about relationships. It's up to the food service director. If you got one that was wired like I was, you're in. And there are those people out there. If they don't, it's going to be a hard sell. Bring them out for coffee and talk to them and plead with them. I had a parent group talk to me, and I'm like the kind of person that was like, well, I don't like to say no. How can we get to yes? And convince me. And I'm like, wow, this sounds like a great idea. So I had somebody like you that was like, hey, Rick, we really want to get school garden produce. And then it started something in me. Not everyone's like that, I know. But it's all about relationships and getting them to do it. And school food service folks they have so many regulations. They work really hard. They work long days. They don't want to do extra work. And then like sometimes it's like, hey, we will help you get produce in and stuff. It works. But we had really quick story. We had one pan of lettuce. I told this like last night at dinner, and it was at one school, and we had the story so much where people say, oh, we just don't have enough to feed our kids. Everybody bought a lunch that day. They all got a little piece of gritty, disgusting lettuce on there. It was really bad. But they got a little bit on their salad from California or whatever on top. They all ate it. We had 3 TV stations, a newspaper, and NPR there for that pan of lettuce. So you're not telling me that it's not a big deal for school garden produce. And, I'll tell that to it was my district. I got all the credit for that. I didn't do a thing, but it's like, what's not to love there? And so it really started something with me. So
can I just speak to that for 1 sec? Sorry.
Yes.
We actually have an awesome food services team in CCSD. We used not, but we do now. And they actually, in some of our schools, have taken the produce that's ready in the hydroponic systems, but they have to take it back to food services, and they clean it and prep it, and then we'll actually bring the salad bar to your school. They're all about it. So if you know you're gonna have a big harvest and you want it to go to the cafeteria, you just have to let them know a couple of weeks beforehand, get the kids to harvest it. They'll come and pick it up, they'll take it away, and they'll put it in the salad bar. Yep, so it's awesome.
That's great.
So quick question, from point of conception. So I'm going to a K through 12 school next year. It's being currently built right now. So from point of conception for the garden, would you suggest that we wait a year and get like everything going before we bring it to our school? Like start it likewise, or how do you think that would
people
make
always,
best work?
get ready to get ready. I mean, you could start small, right? And I would hate to, because sometimes you wait a year and it never happens too.
Always start small.
So it's just my humble opinion, but I say jump right in and don't bite off more than you can chew, or do, whatever, but don't burn everybody out so they leave. But I would start, do one raised bed, do a planter box, do a windowsill garden, something. Okay? All right, cocktail time more. All right, thanks everybody.